Hi, my name is Andrew McDermott, and this is the Champions Mindset Podcast. Join me as I dive into the minds of the world's greatest champions and share with you the secrets, lessons, and knowledge that's allowed them to rise to the top. Welcome to our community of greatness, abundance, and fortitude. Thank you so much for being here. It's time to become the person you've always wanted to be. Cool. All right, I'm here with entrepreneur, investor, coach, futurist, writer, and founder of Make More Marbles, Brad Hart. How you doing, Brad?
What's happening, Andrew? And hello, everybody at home. Thank you for having me on the show. I really appreciate it.
Brad is the very first guest on the Champions Mindset Podcast, and really, I couldn't be more happy to have him be the first guest. So thank you so much for being here, Brad.
Oh, it's my pleasure. I heard about what you were doing, that you're starting a podcast, and I just wanted to get involved and help you get some episodes under your belt. So here we are.
Thanks, man. So for our listeners who aren't familiar with you or your work, could you please tell us a little bit about yourself, what you're doing, and kind of how you got there?
Sure. Well, that's a long story, but let's start from the beginning. So I grew up in New York on Long Island, and I was always kind of the kid that, got bullied and picked on a little bit, how it goes. And when I got into high school, I started to kind of come into myself, and then more so in college, I got really into personal development and really wanting to understand kind of what my place in the world was and relating to people and all that good stuff. So I was going along and doing pretty well. I've worked as a bartender. I've worked as a Wall Street cold caller. My job was to get on the 2 train, go down to from Harlem at 4 a.m, go down to Wall Street, and from 6 to 12, I would pick up the phone and call. Hey, is the managing director in? Is the managing director in England? And then from 12 to 5, I'd call the U.S. Same thing. Make sometimes 800, 1,000 calls a day. And towards the end of that, what would end up happening was people would even call like Australia, but I just decided, I didn't want to put all my eggs in that one basket of Wall Street. This is like 2007, 2008, when the world was coming down around our ears in finance. So I decided to also get my real estate license. But that world always kind of allured me. I saw, what my grandparents had done with money, and my great uncle actually had invested like $100 into Standard Oil and Bell Telephone around the turn of the century, which turned into 15 different companies, and the dividends ended up paying for my grandfather's retirement only a generation later, which was really impressive to me. So I saw the benefit of foresight and investing in myself. But I also wanted to explore real estate, so I ended up doing that for 2 years. I joined a company called Bond New York. Bruno and Noah, the 2 guys from Philadelphia that actually started the company, took a real liking to me. So I ended up getting 5 promotions within 2 years, which was really great. And they gave me a team to work with, and I ended up managing 5 or 6 people under me. And that was going wonderfully until around 2010, when my dad passed away. Right, May of 2010, I was on my way home to see my mom on Mother's Day, and I got the call from an unknown number, and the police told me that they had found him, he had passed. And so that was really kind of a wake-up call, mortality-wise. And it kind of threw me for a loop, and it was a lot of soul-searching for a while. I spent a year out on Long Island, kind of recouping, and trying to figure out what to do next with my life. And then I really got involved with stocks again at that point, right? I started really going deep on 3D printing stocks, and figuring out what the next big thing was going to be. And 3D printing actually led me to do a couple really cool things. I'm kind of skipping around a little bit, but I got to spend a couple days in Miami with Richard Branson, for example, and got to tell him about 3D printing and some of the people that were in attendance there at a fundraiser we went to. So that was really cool. And then one of my friends, Morgan, actually took one of the stock tips and paid for his wedding with it, right? Because all those stocks went really wild for a while, and I ended up writing an article in Forbes about it, and it started out as like this kind of really crazy thing. I was just a kid, 25 years old at the time, who, was just kind of really starting to get a feel for, trading profitably and understanding how stocks worked. And all of a sudden people are like, I want to give you money to manage. And all these big names are like, saying, hey, you got a good idea here. And hey, that article blew up. It got read 270 plus thousand times. And I'm like, okay, cool. So I don't know what that looks like. I don't know how to manage money. I don't know, what the companies look like. The corporate structure. So I called some really smart people. They recommended some lawyers to me. They recommended some accountants to me. I I kind of worked through the whole thing. I had some mentors at the time that kind of helped me piece together the piece of the puzzle. I ended up not cold calling, like, warm relationships, but like calling 200 different people, and I had 17 invest with me. So that was the beginning of my hedge fund, Heart One Capital, which was named. Yeah, go ahead.
So this one article you wrote basically changed your life.
Yeah. So, it's kind of funny looking back. Like, you can never connect the dots, Andrew, looking forward, right? It's only after you kind of seeing what happened as a result of your actions. I was just kind of like throwing things up against the wall, seeing what sticks, and I just kind of knew, since my dad died, like I was in this kind of really cool space where it was like, all right, I need to be fearless. I need to take big risks. I need to make bold moves. I need to take every opportunity that life throws at me. And I really did for a while. Like I didn't judge. I didn't, plan. I just said yes to everything that came along. And I think you need to do that in order to be successful at first, right? You need to figure out who you are and what you're good at and where your place is in the world by just trying shit out. Excuse my language, but you got to just go and do things and not worry so much about, will this work out? Will I be able to pay the bills? Because ultimately, by becoming world-class at something and understanding what you're great at, that will inevitably lead you to the next opportunity. You don't need to see the whole staircase in order to take the first step. So yeah, I guess that's just a way to say that, for me, I had no idea where I'd end up. And ultimately, investing, though I was successful at it monetarily, we had a really good year. We did 106% return for my investors and I. I don't get to keep all that money, but, we're talking pretty big, amounts of money. And from where I came from, it was, pretty substantial. And ultimately I learned that, money wasn't the only thing, right? It was more about service and growth and contribution coming from, I think, my upbringing, which I discussed a little bit earlier, like being that kind of outcast, right? And wanting to really connect with people and feel like I belonged with people. So, sitting behind a computer screen and fighting machines for dollars every day for the rest of my life, didn't really seem like the best use of my time here on earth, even if I was pretty good at it, right?
Absolutely.
Because, at the end of the day, you could do a lot of things. There's a million ways to make $1 million. But if you're not crazy about what you do for a living, and to serve people, then I think you should change it, right? Life's too short. So
that's really what I wanted to talk about right away. Because, the word champion, it's the people, they're the best, the top of their field. And I believe that these people who are the best have this type of passion and fuel and fire inside them that drives them. But it's something so deep down and it means so much to them that nothing's going to stand in their way. And it sounds like for you, the passing of your father was a real, turning point in your life that is one of those things.
Yeah, and I don't tell this to many people, but honestly, I think it's worth noting is that my dad was an alcoholic. He was he drank himself to death, and there was a time where careful what you wish for. Like, I just wished it would all be over because it was so miserable to watch him kill himself. Yeah. Right, and when he died, I was relieved. And that sounds terrible. Like, I don't ever want you to, or anybody who's listening to have to understand what it's like to want your parent to just pass away and end his suffering, because he was so miserable. And I tried so many years to get him to just wake up to the fact that he had his whole life ahead of him, and he drank himself to death because ultimately he was afraid to live the life that he wanted to live, right? And that was such a terrible, awful thing that I had, again, I felt like I was part of the reason, and again, it was me playing victim. It was me playing like, woe is me, right? But in reality, he made his own choices, right? And I wasn't the person that needed to save him. You can't save anybody who doesn't want to save themselves.
Yeah.
Right. That's another thing I had to learn is like, let's use the Coast Guard as an example. The Coast Guard goes in their helicopter to save 25 people that, are in a capsized ship, and they're all they're all drowning, right? And you can only save so many. There's only so much room in the helicopter. Who do you save? You save the ones that are swimming towards you, Andrew, because the other ones are going to pull you down, drown you with them, right? And I'll help anybody that's willing to swim towards me, but I can't help everybody, right? Exactly. So I think most people, especially if you're a giving person like I am, you can end up being a martyr and dragging yourself down with you, right? Like the oxygen mask. You got to put your oxygen mask on first. And I think, as much as I love my dad and as much as it was a conflicted relationship, we used to get in fights, and I got in a fist fight with him when I was 16. And I mean, the stories go on and on. As much as he added to my life, he also added a very strong, don't end up like this model for me to follow. Right?
Sometimes
Don't do this with your life. Right?
Exactly. Sometimes the most important thing in life is finding out what not to do, what not to be, and can influence you even more than something that is a good influence like that. So, in addition to that, I would love to know, when you wake up every day, what gives you purpose? What's that fuel inside you that you think has made you become who you are, where you are today, and how much success you've had?
You know, Andrew, it's funny, like the older you get, and I'm not super old, I just turned 30 last year. But I feel like I've lived a lot of lives, and I feel like I've been in a lot of countries, I've met a lot of people. I love to connect with people and hear their stories. You know, the more you kind of get around this world and get out of yourself, the more you realize that it was never about you. It was never about, Brad being in a place and getting what Brad needs. It's about everybody that you come into contact with, everything that you bring into creation, right? Everything that you bring to the table. And the sum of your life can't be made up in the things that you want. It's made up in the things that you give and the things that you create that help other people.
And that's the abundance mindset that, I've read a lot of your work now, and what I've read for you talks so much about an abundance mindset. And for, listeners who don't maybe know exactly what it is, could you explain that a little bit?
Yeah, I think abundance is kind of what I want to espouse as my message, but in reality, it's a nebulous word, and I'll be the first to say it, right? It doesn't mean anything. Just like scarcity doesn't mean anything, right? It's not concrete. It doesn't, lend itself to attracting a lot of different people. They hear something like abundance and love and giving, and they're like, oh, it's fucking woo-woo, right? It's this and that and the other thing. But in reality, abundance means what you think it means, right? To me, it means having enough, or, to go around, right? It means not having to grab for what's already there, or worry, or be scarce, or wonder if you're going to be taken care of, right? Because the top two fears that all humans have are, will we be enough? And if we aren't enough, will we be loved, right? Because ultimately our greatest strength as human beings is our ability and capacity to love each other. That's our competitive edge. We'll do more for others than we'll do for ourselves, right? So for me, abundance is living without the fear of not having enough or not being loved, right? Yeah. And that scarcity is the base under all of the wars and all of the struggles and all of the power grabs and all of the things that are, what I consider to be, the issues with humanity, is that we all believe that there's not enough, and therefore we behave in a way which is strategic, right? If there was enough, if everybody had what they needed, that would change. And I realize that's not the world we live in today, but as technology progresses, our general way of life is increasing exponentially, right? The amount of wealth that the average person has access to, the amount of access, the amount of information, the amount of opportunity that the average person has access to today is light years ahead of where it was not only 100 years ago, but picture like 2,000 years ago, 5,000 years ago, where people are now. I mean, we have supercomputers in our pocket that didn't exist 8 years ago. Right? We can fly across the country in a jet. A trip that takes 5 hours used to take 3 months, and people would die along the way. Right? So when I think of abundance, I think of where we are and where we're also going is into a future that, if we make the right choices and we change our beliefs as far as what's possible, we have the technological ability to provide for people at a higher level. We have the technological ability to get off this planet, right? To create more than a single point of failure system. And this is where I start to lose people, right? Is like, where's the human race going? Most people don't care. They care about themselves.
Yeah, they care about right now,
And they care about today and tomorrow and maybe a week from now if they're smart, right? But I want to foster in my own mind, and again, this doesn't come out of nowhere. This comes from like my great uncle investing in, shares of stock that he would never see the benefit of for his forebears. But I feel like if we're going to survive as a species, we need to start to be long-term thinkers.
And that's another thing that you talk about a lot in your writings, your business, is building a tribe, a community. And for me, what I've realized is that, when you do something together with people, when you have this community, everyone working together is much more powerful than just one person alone. So,
absolutely.
Exactly. Well, and so what?
Well, and the thing is, like, society teaches you to try to be the best individual you can be, but it also, to win, right?
Yeah.
But in reality, you only can do so much as an individual, right? Yeah. You only have one piece of the puzzle to bring to the puzzle. The people all around you, however, if you're world class at something, you start to attract other world class people, then you have a movement. But humanity has this tendency to laud the leaders, right? The Mark Zuckerbergs, the Steve Jobs, the Elon Musks, the Richard Bransons, but they conveniently neglect the fact that hundreds of thousands of people have helped make that person the figurehead for their organization, right? There's 400 companies under the Virgin umbrella. It's not all Richard, right? He's the leader, but it's many, 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 many people doing many, many, many different jobs, adding multiple types of value that actually creates that wealth, right? And that abundance. So I think, as you progress in the world and find out what you're great at, it doesn't mean that you have to settle. It doesn't mean that you have to, not be personally effective. It just means that if you are experiencing scarcity, I believe the cure for that is teamwork, is finding the right people that have the pieces of the puzzle that you don't have to get the results that you're looking to get in your life, whether that be money, love, any type of abundance that you'd like to experience really comes from creating the right team around you. And that's what's worked for me. That's what's worked for a lot of the people that I spend time with, my mentors, my heroes, the people that, are really moving and shaking in the world and making the world a better place. They have teams, right? They have teams of high level people that do specific things really well. And together they come and become this greater than the sum of their parts.
I completely agree. And I think it's a big problem, especially with, younger kids growing up in, early 20s, is that, you go through this system where, it's always, you're competing against everyone. It's always, to get the top of the class, the top GPA. And
it's all nonsense. It's really just, it's ego stroking, because most people start out their life, there's 6 human needs, right? Tony Robbins teaches us: certainty, variety, significance, love and connection, growth and contribution, right? The top 2 are like, the last 2 are spiritual needs, and the first are like personality needs. Everybody starts life, or at least 95% of people start life in certainty and significance, right? They want to feel important, like they matter, specifically them, and that they're certain of an outcome that's going to happen, right? But as life progresses, if you don't get out of that mentality, right, then you're going to have pain throughout your whole life, even if you are successful monetarily, even if you are, winning all of the different things. It's going to be empty and hollow if you're not growing as a person and you're not contributing beyond yourself, right? Exactly. So especially kids in school, I feel like the educational system is not geared towards creating leaders. It's geared towards creating followers, and it's geared towards pandering towards the industries of old that needed people who showed up on time, who stayed late, who worked hard, and who were cogs in a wheel. But that world doesn't exist anymore. We're on the verge of AI and robotics taking a lot of those jobs away. So in order to thrive in this world, we have to change our strategy, and our educational strategy is at the forefront of that, right? The way we educate human beings is not to be problem solvers, which is what adds value to the marketplace. We educate people to be cogs in a wheel, or in a machine that no longer will exist in very short order.
And that's really what inspired me to start this show, was out of necessity. In what we're discussing right now, this abundance mindset, this type of mindset is, I believe, essential to the overall champion's mindset, and it's really the basis of it. And so that brings me to my next question, is that you obviously have this innate desire to always improve, to always get better. So how do you keep that fire burning? What keeps that inside of you? Are you never satisfied, or how do you keep that balance of, relishing in the wins, but then getting back in the trenches and getting back in it?
Yeah, I think that's a great question, and I didn't understand it before, so I'm glad I'm on the other side of it for you to ask me that question. I think it originally started as fear, right? It started as a place of, oh crap, I don't want to be like my dad, right? That was the initial driving. I was moving away from pain, right? There's 2 things that motivate people at the end of the day. It's pain and pleasure, right? Most people are motivated by the avoidance of pain. They'll only work hard enough not to experience pain. So I had a distinctly large amount of pain compared to most people in my childhood. Therefore, I moved farther away from it. But as I started to mature as an adult, I started to realize, wait a second, there's also this other side of the thing, right? It's pleasure. And how do I connect with what actually lights me up, right? How do I connect with what I get out of bed and feel best at every day, right? Because one of the things when you start to create space in your life by earning money or having money is you realize that, very quickly, the fuck you money lifestyle that most people espouse to in this society and is lauded by society. Oh, you have so much money, you don't have to work. Who the hell wants to live that life? It's so boring, right? There's no challenge. There's no wins. There's no losses, just static, right? It's just, you waste away slowly. I believe truly that Humans are either growing or they're dying.
I completely agree. And what you said, I think is so important for people who, always they'll be watching TV, watching famous celebrities, sports stars, and they always talk about, if I had that money, man, life would be perfect. And I always tell my friends, like, I don't think that's true. And they go, what do you know? And by no means am I making millions of dollars, but
Right.
I've taken a different path
But
in life where
but you've kind of poked your head up above the din and said, wait a second, I don't know if that's really true, and
yeah, and I'm a young, single guy. I have no wife or children, and I'm, financially independent, and just a year and a half ago, I was in a place where I wasn't happy. I wasn't with people who made me happy. I had all the money I needed, and it didn't matter. It didn't matter at all.
I think happiness is a nebulous concept, just like abundance, right? I mean, yeah, it's cool to like espouse it and get behind it, and yeah, I want to be happy, but that's not the number one priority, right? I go for measurable, actionable results, right? Like, how excited, how do I feel throughout the day, right? How do I feel when I'm doing the things I'm doing? If something I do consistently makes me miserable, I'm going to find a way not to have to do it and do more of the things that light me up and make me feel good. And whatever those things are for you, I recommend you find a way to leverage those and do more of those and spend more time in the zone, right? Of excitement, of happiness, whatever that is for you. And there's no wrong answer. It's just what works for you, right? So many people are lined up along life and just told, you got to do something productive. You got to make money. You got to do this, that, and the other thing. And they don't stop to think what will actually make them excited to wake up in the morning, thrilled at the results they're getting, draw the right people into their life. All these things are way more important than just money. But the problem is that you have to live in lack until you actually produce enough to create the space to realize that. Does that make sense? Like,
Yeah.
It's a kind of a weird dichotomy of like, you need money, you need enough money to figure out that money's not everything in order to have it. So like, I have a lot of empathy for people who don't understand what that's like. And there's people listening right now that are going to be like, well, fuck you, dude. I can't pay my rent. And I get it. I've been there. Like, I grew up poor, and I've been up against the wall a bunch of times with a lot of risk on the table and almost lost it all. So I know what that's like. I know what having money trouble is like. It's just, I've seen both sides of it now, and I can give you perspective from both sides of it. Right. So I think that the biggest takeaway from all that is that it's a paradox, right? Ultimately, doing the thing that lights you up and you're best at will attract other world-class performers to your team, to your tribe, which will create better results and more money for everybody.
Exactly.
But if you try to just be the guy who's over, standing by himself, being the cog in the wheel, building somebody else's dream, not that there's anything wrong with that. We all got to start somewhere and learn. But if you're going to stay that way, you're going to be pretty upset with the results of your life, right? Because companies aren't keeping you around for 4 years and giving you the gold watch and the pension. They're just not. They can't. There's too much competition these days globally, right? And it's only gonna speed up.
Exactly. And so much of the system, though, all the training, the school, what they tell you is still built for that old system, and it's really scary. What's going to happen to all these people who?
Yeah, if everybody has a college degree, nobody has a college degree, right?
Yeah.
That's just the long and short of it, right? That just creates a new normal. It's a new baseline, right? It's just like, having a GED versus a high school diploma, right? If everybody has one, it's the same thing, right? So like, education with no purpose is the biggest waste of time. But people are afraid, right? They want certainty and they want to feel like important. So they go through these systematic education processes, which are completely irrelevant in 2 years. If they were ever relevant to begin with, based on what they're trying to do. So I always tell kids thinking about college or thinking about education, if you're going for a specific reason to become a specific thing that requires a certification or, you have to be a doctor, have a medical degree to become a doctor, fine. But ultimately, if you're just going to school just as an excuse to keep the dream alive of living off the parents' teat and not contributing any value really to society by solving problems that people have, then maybe you should rethink it. I think you should definitely rethink it. I think Gary Vaynerchuk would say, hey, get your head out of your ass and go do something valuable, right? Because ultimately you'll be happier as a result of that, right? It's again, another catch-22, right? You don't wait to feel happy in order to go out and get results for people. You go out and get results for people, and ultimately that'll make you happy, right?
Yeah.
And adding your value, your specific one based on your strengths, based on what you like to do, is part of the journey, right? Figuring that piece out. Your purpose is to find your purpose and then live it. And then once it's, satisfied, you move on to your next purpose.
I couldn't agree with more with what you said. And one thing that stands out to me too, going through this myself a few years ago, is there's so much societal pressure, especially, with social media now, everything, you're supposed to do it this way, you're supposed to do it that way, but if you look at champions, the people who are best at what they do, they didn't do what everyone else did, because obviously if you do what everyone else did, you're going to end up like everyone else.
And you're not everybody else. Everybody's unique in some
Exactly.
way. I'm not saying everybody's a unique snowflake, like everybody's completely different. A lot of people have similar traits and values and skills, but ultimately we're all different people, right? So if I'm looking at Andrew and I'm coveting Andrew's results based on Andrew's life, it's just a silly pretense, right? But I used to believe that, and that's the crazy thing, is you don't know in life what you don't know. 5 years ago, I would have said, I want to be just like Tim Ferriss. So I went and I hunted him down and I spent 10 days with him in Africa, and I thought that was super cool. But, getting close to people and seeing what they're actually like in real life, not, for better or for worse, it just wasn't for me, right? That lifestyle and what he was doing was great for him. And ultimately I had to really find out what was great for me. And now that I'm finally, figuring that out, or I have figured it out, I feel like, I want to serve and grow and lead and coach and speak and write books and do all of that and spread my message. It makes a lot more sense, right? It's just like, I'm not needing anything from anybody else anymore, right? And now I can provide a lot of value as a result, right? Because my cup is full, right? I feel fulfilled because I'm living in harmony and in flow with life. And then once you do that, you're like, okay, well, how can I make this world a little better? My cup's full. How can I help others, right? Because that growing and the contribution happens, right?
And
so
what I think you're saying too is that what people need to understand is there's not a right way, there's your way.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, that's a great way to put it. It's very succinct. There's not a right way. Right does not exist, right? No. Wrong does not exist. They're all perceptions created by people, right? This whole thing called life is just perceptions agreeing to create reality, right? If you and I agree, that's our reality. If the whole world agrees, that's our reality. If we wake up tomorrow and say the sky is purple and everybody agrees with us, it's purple.
Exactly. Awesome. Well, next I wanted to get in a little more bit deeper into the mindset and your mentality. So first I wanted to ask you, as an investor, as a successful investor, some of it's so mental and emotional. You always hear about the best investors are the ones who can keep their emotions and decision making.
Yeah.
So what kind of influence has that had on other parts of your life as well? Being able to be very logical and straightforward with your thinking.
I don't know if that's really the case, Andrew, and I'll just tell you what my experience has been, and I can't speak for everybody. I'm not Warren Buffett. I'm not, John Paulson. I'm not Ray Dalio, although those are all people I learn a lot from. I feel like it's not you don't have a lack of emotion. You don't deaden your emotions. You just get better at sticking to the game plan. Because I'll give you I named my my fund Heartwood Capital, right? And Heartwood is the name of an orchard that my great grandfather used to own on Long Island, and now it's a neighborhood and there's houses, but it's still called Heartwood by the sound. So I called it Heartwood Capital, and the whole premise behind that was, an orchard is not one tree. I don't plant one tree and say, "There's my orchard." I plant 1,000 trees because I have no earthly idea which trees are going to live and which trees are going to die, which are going to survive, and which are going to thrive ahead of time. I just have to make a lot of trees happen, right? With a hedge fund, it's very similar, right? You consistently make what seem to be good bets that seem to have a high expectancy of paying off and good odds, right? A good edge, if you will, in the marketplace based on prior data, based on experience, based on your strategy, whatever it is. You make enough of these bets, and over time, by cutting your losses quickly and by letting your winners run, eventually you win, right? Overall, right? It's not about going up to the plate. And, Babe Ruth is a great example. Babe Ruth struck out 7 times out of 10, but he's still one of the best hitters of all time, right? It's not about the ones that you lose on or worrying about that. It's about making consistently good bets over time. Sorry, go ahead.
No, excuse me. Would you say that you can use that in your life as well by...
Oh, 1,000%. Yeah. So any one decision, I had a great example. My buddy Brent, I was at a private mastermind with him, and the man is very successful, and you could tell he's just stressed all the time, right? And I'm like, starting to talk to him, and he said one thing I told him, he broke down in tears and he said, you said that it's just a choice. It's just a decision. Just make it and move on. And no one decision can cripple you. And that changed his whole life around, because he thought every decision was like a life or death thing. And it was showing up in his body language. It was showing up in his life. It was showing up in his hair going away. It was showing up in his diet. It was showing up in the way he approached the world, because he thought everything was life or death. It's just a decision, right? We live to fight another day. And as long as you can keep that in perspective and not get so tied up in any one thing, I mean, it's really easy, again, as a human being, to get tied up in every silly thing that happens, right? But as we mature, we can grow and realize that we can respond to every situation. We don't have to react to everything that happens. So when you lose money in the marketplace, provided you followed your rules, you should be patting yourself on the back because you followed your rules. When you make money in the marketplace, you should be patting yourself on the back because you followed your rules. If you don't follow your rules, that's the behavior you need to correct.
And I think this closely relates to something that, as you referenced Gary Vaynerchuk before, for those listeners who don't know who Gary Vaynerchuk is, he is an incredible...
Turn on the internet if you've never heard of it.
Yeah, exactly. Just an incredible entrepreneur, and his personality is even more amazing. Check him out.
Gary's awesome.
But he always talks about how he was a terrible student, F student, but his mantra in life is to bet on his strengths. Screw his weaknesses. He's terrible at a ton of stuff, but those couple things he's good at, he is going to run with them to the moon. And I think that is so important. I always, talk about that, to use your advantages to the most and to overcome your disadvantages, but don't dwell on the bad things the things you're bad at.
Yeah. No, you hit it right on the head. And I love Gary. I think he's great. He's very, very excited about helping the next generation of entrepreneurs kind of, get it right and understand that, this is what the life is. It's not certain. It's not, glamorous all the time. You do work hard, and no, the future is not guaranteed, because guess what? Everybody in the world is trying to do something important. Everybody in the world is trying to build the biggest company. Everybody in the world is, the competition is unlimited. The way you stand out is by being the best version of you, right?
Exactly.
And playing to your strengths. And I think he hits that right on the head. So, I love the questions. Keep them coming. Thank you so much.
Oh, no problem. There was actually, so the other side of that. So I wanted to know about how investing has played, a role in your mindset. And on kind of the other side is you're a musician. And me, myself, I don't know if I play a few instruments. I don't know how good I am, but music is a huge part of my life. Music is one of my favorite things to do. It's so important to me. And so I wanted to know what kind of role music plays in your life.
Totally. Not as much as it used to. I'm a little busy these days, but historically it was my panacea, right? It was like, I was 12 years old when I picked up my first guitar. I've been playing now for 18 plus years. I love playing guitar. I put out an album 5 years ago. I love to sing. I have a musical mindset. I don't know how to read music. I don't know how to if you told me hey, play a B sharp minor, blah, 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 I'd be like, I'd have to look it up. Right. But ultimately at that time in my life, music was because I was in so much pain, right? Again, I was looking for escape. I escaped with drugs. I escaped with alcohol. I started drinking when I was 11, but music was the one thing that I knew, would ground me and center me and focus me and let the hours go by in a skill that was useful, right? It made me feel good. It made me feel like a rock star. It made me feel like I could one day get chicks, or whatever at that time, right? And not only that, it also bonded me to my dad, because my dad, again, he had faults and he had plus sides. One of his plus sides is he loved music, right? And he was always excited to hear me play music, even when I sucked. And that honestly was one of the biggest things when I was growing up is I felt like I didn't have anything I was good at. I didn't feel like I belonged in anywhere. And when he took an interest in getting me guitars, even though I knew we couldn't afford them, he'd find a way to get me a secondhand guitar or whatever. And he would actually figure it out. He always made sure I had the stuff I needed to make music. And that was super cool. Even if there was very limited food and beverage options in the house, he was making sure I had guitar strings and all that other cool stuff. So awesome, his support early on really bonded me to him and really made me love music. So every time, after he died, I stopped playing as much. But during his life, like, I really loved it, and I enjoyed the heck out of it. Yeah, it's great. Thank you for asking, because that brought back some great memories.
Oh, no problem, man. That was it, it's very hard to explain the effect that music has on me. It's totally an escape for me.
Yeah.
I don't know why, but it is so important to me, and it's almost like it narrates your life.
Yeah. Well, and listening to others, contributions to the musical scene too. I'm blown away all the time when I hear beauty in music, and it's always going all the time. And I love it. Every time I have a moment to myself, I'm always listening to something on Spotify and,
Me too,
and something like that. Yeah.
Awesome. So now I wanted to go into a few quicker questions.
Sure.
And the first one I thought I'd ask you is, when you hear the word champion, who is the first person that comes to mind?
I think of Olympic athletes. I forget her name, but there was a girl who broke her leg doing. Do you remember her name? Christy McNichol, was that her?
I don't know her name. It was in like the 70s or 80s.
Yeah, so if you guys don't know the story, you can look it up. It was like they were gonna win. They were against the Russians. It was gymnastics, and this girl like was going to do her thing. It was like the second to last competition. She broke her leg, and they thought it was over, and it was really terrible. And everybody said, "Oh, the USA is going to lose it." And then she went and she did the damn trick or whatever you call it on a broken leg, and the place went crazy. And it was like, oh my God, like one of those just incredible human moments.
It's a very iconic Olympic.
You're right there.
I can picture it right now.
Tearing up just thinking about it, and it's like, holy crap, like that is the human spirit right there. And those are the people I look up to as champions. And yeah, I feel like there's so many different paths you can take in life, and none of them are wrong, but I feel like if you're really going to do justice to your life and the gifts that you're given, right? I think it's a gift to be here. Being the best version of yourself means you're a champion.
Awesome.
Period. End of story. And then everybody can be a champion. It's not about the one who's the best. It's the one who rises to the peak of what they are capable of.
Awesome, man. That's a great answer. So, all right. Do you have any sort of daily routine?
Yeah, of course.
Awesome, man. Let's hear it.
So I've been dialing this in for years, but I have morning rituals, incantations. Lately, and this isn't always static, but lately I've been waking up around 6:30, and I spend some time reading first thing, and drinking a lot of water and kind of getting ready for the day. Actually, I fast until the afternoon. I don't eat breakfast anymore, and I haven't done that in 2 or 3 years. Because of John, actually, he helped me get in shape, and I finally found something that was sustainable for me. And, maybe it would work for you as well. I wrote an article about, not you specifically, Andrew, but the listeners at home. I wrote an article about my whole struggle with low testosterone and how it ruined a relationship, and how I turned it around with diet and exercise. So yeah, that's super important to me, is just getting that break, giving your digestive system, your body, your endocrine system, your hormones a chance to catch up, right? I don't believe that human beings were designed or evolved to eat food 24/7. Like, think about it, right? In the Paleolithic we weren't going to the fridge and picking out snacks first thing in the morning, right? We'd have to go find that shit. We'd have to go find the food and then bring it back to camp and prepare it and all that. So, that's kind of how I look. But I do incantations, I'll do meditations, I'll journal, I'll write, I'll make a video, I'll run, I'll go to the gym, depending on what day it is. I like doing ice baths now. There's all these different things I get to do, which is wonderful. I'm very blessed. Just live in this California lifestyle. I had to get the heck out of New York. It was killing me. I've been out here for 3 years now, and I love the sunshine. I love the people. I love that it gets cool at night. It doesn't stay hot and sticky like in New York. It's just a cool place to be. And ultimately, the better I feel physically, the more I pay attention to my body, the more energy I have to serve more people. So that's a no-brainer, for me.
That's an awesome way to look at that. That when you have more energy, you can provide more value to people.
Just everything goes up, everything, the height of experience and emotion. Like, really, we're doing all these things for a feeling, right, Andrew? Like, people do things, they make money, they help people, they fall in love, they have sex, they have children. It's all for a feeling, right? It's not about the thing, it's not about the act, it's about how it makes them feel. So ultimately, like, if we're all energetic beings, right? If we're all, part of this energetic reality, and our emotions are our energy, having the most energy possible will help you to have the highest level of vibration, the highest level of emotion. And I could go really esoteric into like the law of attraction, whatever. But I believe that operating at a higher wavelength or vibrating at a higher wavelength energetically attracts better people in your life. It attracts better opportunities in your life, right? Just the sheer fact that, you ever meet somebody and they're just kind of funky and you don't want to be around them.
You just know.
Well, guess what? Well, world-class people see that too, right? They see when people are kind of funky, energetically, and they see when they're not. And they naturally select for better people to spend time around because they know they have a lot to offer, and it's not worth their limited resources, their time, their attention, and their energy to waste on somebody who isn't grateful, right? Or isn't looking to serve, even not even at their level, but at a level period, right? And the more world-class people I meet, I think they share that same mindset, right? It's like, if I'm going to do the thing, I got to make sure I'm surrounding myself with the best people, the best opportunities, the best of everything in life, right? Not just whatever shows up.
Absolutely, man. All right, one more. And
cool.
What are some of your favorite books?
Oh God.
I know that's for somebody who also reads a ton. That's like
which of my kids is going to die? Yeah.
Yeah, it's an impossible question, but
I can almost guarantee I'll leave a few out, but let's pick a topic. What are my favorite books on?
Mindset, mental.
For making money. We'll start there.
No, more altruistic, more just about the more human aspect of the mind.
I've read a lot of biographies of really wonderful people: Malcolm X, JFK, Mother Teresa, Richard Branson, and autobiographies. People that write their own biographies. I feel like a life well lived is worth recording. Like, if it's worth living, it's worth recording, right? So the best, most altruistic people will have the best stories and lessons relating to that. And depending on their strength as a writer, because writing a book is an entirely different skill set than living an amazing life, right?
Yeah.
You might want to go for their autobiography if they're a really great writer. You might want to go for their biography by a really great writer to capture the meat of it, right? So any of those, like, pick some people, I think, ultimately, that have the mindset and the results that you want to have, and read about their life and start to piece together the puzzles. And it won't look exactly the same for you, but it'll give you the inspiration, I think, to start when you have nothing in the tank, right? When you're just starting out, modeling people who are successful is the best way to be successful yourself.
I agree. Personally, over the last few years, I've really gravitated more towards biographies instead of the latest self-help book on the shelf, because first of all, the stories are just so more engrossing and enjoyable to read. But like you said, you're learning from the best, the most successful. For me, when I was 14 years old, I read Richard Branson's "Losing My Virginity."
Great book.
That was the first book that really, inspired me. That I was like, yeah, I want to be an entrepreneur. I want to do this, and that's why I think biographies like that are so important to read, because you can discover things in yourself that you didn't even know were inside you.
Totally. Absolutely. And, I think if I was going to leave people with one belief to ponder, right? And these are all just beliefs. I look at it like a wardrobe. Go in, try on a new belief, wear it for a while, see if it works better for you. I believe that everybody in the world can be great. I just do. I just believe everybody has greatness within them, provided they're willing to make a real decision and go after it.
I completely agree, man, which kind of leads into the last question. This being the first episode of the Champions Mindset podcast, I thought I'd just explain real quick kind of what I wanted to do at the end. A lot of different shows do, the top 3 tips for, living healthy.
Top 3 tips.
Yeah, top 3 tips.
Sound bites, go.
That's the hot thing. So I wanted to kind of do something different for this show at the end. And so here it is for the first time with Brad Hart. And I wanted to ask you, what is the one thing you challenge our listeners to change or do in their lives to become a champion?
It's a great question. I would say the one thing that I would tell people to commit to or change to become a champion. Here's a quote from a guy named Stu Mittleman, which I really love. Stu is an ultra marathon endurance runner. The guy set the record at age 30 for running the most number of miles in the fewest number of days, and then he actually beat his own record when he was 50 years old. He ran, I think, 2 marathons a day for 30 days and ran across the country. So this is Stu, right? Little Jewish guy that runs well. No, it doesn't look like an endurance runner. He just looks like a little short guy. But Stu says, focus on results and you won't change. Focus on change and you get results. So to wit, right, what the action steps are focus on those 1% shifts, right? I don't want you to try to change your whole life overnight, right? And 30-day challenges are great for this because if you change one thing per month for 12 months, you change 12 things, right? You're an entirely different person in a couple of years, right? But if you focus on those little 1% shifts, if you can get 1% better per day at something, you can be world class before you know it. Because at the end of a year, you're looking at like a 3,700% return on your investment, right? Just compounding 1% a day, right? If you could get that in the stock market, starting with $1,000, you'd be in pretty good shape, right?
Yeah.
But in life, you can really get those kind of gains, right? Like you might think, oh, well, if I can be 1% better, like how do I do that? Like it doesn't take much, man. It's just trying a little harder every single day. It's learning a new thing. It's feeding your mind. It's increasing the amount of energy and attention you spend on the right things, right? It's moving away from a consumptive mindset to a creative mindset. It's spending less time in a funk and using your body in more effective ways, right? Getting out there, using it, deciding what you're going to focus on, deciding on the language you're going to use, catching yourself when you start complaining and doing the shit that you don't need to be doing.
Awesome. So focus on the small changes that will make you better every single day. I just want to thank
100%.
you
My pleasure.
so much, Brad, for being on the show. Where can people find you and your current work and what you're doing?
So I am at Make More Marbles. That's the site, makemoremarbles.com. I'm also at Make More Marbles on all the major social medias. And check me out. Check out the site. There's plenty of free, cool stuff on productivity and quitting alcohol. I have a great video on YouTube that's doing really well right now. It's like I get 2 or 3 emails a week about 30-day challenges relating to alcohol, but you can use the framework for almost anything you want to change or replace in your life. I want to give people the tools to be awesome and to do great stuff and to become champions themselves. So I think there's a lot of good stuff there. And if you guys have any questions for me, shoot me a note.
Awesome, man. And you will be able to find everything about Brad Hart in the show notes, everything we talked about today, all resources. And just thank you again, Brad. This has been absolutely incredible.
My pleasure, Andrew. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Awesome.